Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Brent. I just want to thank you for tuning in for this past Sunday's sermon. If you are watching on our app or through our website, or if you're listening through wherever you catch your podcasts, we're so happy that you're tuning in with us today. We just want to invite you to take a couple minutes and fill out a Connect card, or if you want to give financially and partner with our ministry, right now is your opportunity to do that through the links below or the buttons below this video. We're going to start the sermon here in a couple minutes, but I just wanted to personally say thank you for tuning in. Thank you for partnering with us. We love you guys, and we just pray that this message blesses you. We'll see you in a couple minutes. Church, glad you're here. Good to see some old friends in town for the holiday season, people that we haven't seen that were around when Anchor started, and always good to see each other. And glad you're here today. The sun is out, right? Someone told me we're supposed to get like 5 inches of snow this week. Who's ready? Yeah, I'm down. I'm ready for it. My kids are so excited. Last Sunday, they were making, I know I need Alan to come fix my snowblower. And my kids last week, were like, we're playing in the snow. And they went and made snowmen. Anybody else make snowmen last week? You were just, no? Anybody's kids make snowmen? Yeah, all right. There's some people that like to play outside. The rest of you need to get out a little and go throw a snowball at someone. But really glad you're here today. So happy to be with you. If you have your Bibles, turn to the book of Matthew because we're going to get right into the sermon this morning. And Thanksgiving was good, right? It was a weird Thanksgiving, right? But it was good. Always good to slow down. Who's ready for Christmas? Who's been decorated for Christmas for a month? Tell the truth. That's my house. We deep dived into Christmas right off the bat. Who is not decorated for Christmas yet? Who's holding out? Amos is holding out. And some of y'all need to just get into the Christmas spirit and get those Christmas lights out. It's good times. But I did enjoy this week. I did enjoy slowing down, and I think God has been teaching me to pause. And I think it's good for us. I think this year has taught us as all people to pause and slow down and to focus. And through this series we've been in, we started a series titled The Church I See. And I felt God leading us into this series to talk about who is the church, not that we want to be as anchor, but the church. Jesus came to establish the church on earth. He came to build the pillars of what the church would become. Remember, he trained up the disciples, and he literally looks at Peter and says, "You're the rock on which I'm going to build my church," right? And then he elevators up into heaven. He's like, "I'm out. Have fun figuring that out." And so we've been trying to figure out this church things for thousands of years. And we had Paul and these greats that were going around establishing the church, but they were building the church off the principles that Jesus taught throughout his ministry. And so we've been going through the gospel and looking at what is Jesus calling us as the church, us as people to be, which then reflects us as the church's anchor. And I've really enjoyed it, and I hope it's challenged you, impressed you. And this morning I want to talk about faith. And that seems like when we're at church, that should be something obvious, and that should be something that we're used to. But anybody, I feel like this is a guy problem. Maybe it's a girl problem too. But guys, are you ever building stuff and you just toss the directions, right? And you get to the end and you end up with like 10 extra parts that you're like, I don't know what these are. They must be bonus parts, right? Anybody like that? That has translated down to my son. He loves building Legos, and sometimes he likes to just look at the picture and see if he can build it, but he'll get to the end and find a whole pile of extra Lego pieces, and I'll be like, dude, you might have needed. He's like, no, those are extra pieces, right? You always have extra pieces in the pile. The interesting thing is most of the time, if you've ever built something from IKEA, you end up with lots of extra pieces, right? And you get to the end, and a year later, as you're looking at that IKEA shelf and it's leaning to one side, you're like, oh, that's probably what those extra pieces were for. I remember when I was a kid, a buddy of mine, he had a tree fort, and so we would go to our tree fort, and that became like our clubhouse, right? That's where we like decked that place out. We would steal snacks from the kitchen and stockpile them in the tree fort. And we had like a lockbox so they'd stay secure. And as we began to acquire stuff in his tree fort, we were like, we need more room in the tree fort. And so there were all these wood beams all over. And so we started just busting out wood beams. We were like, we need room for more snacks. So we just started breaking stuff. If you've ever built things, there are pieces of wood in places for a specific reason. And we didn't understand that. We just thought we need more room for food. Anyone ever been there? You just start breaking stuff, right? A buddy of mine, he was in his house and he wanted to take out a wall. And he got halfway through taking out the wall and realized this wall might be important. It might be holding up the ceiling above me. And he paused. We ran into the same problem. We started knocking out. All of a sudden, the tree fort started to get real sketchy and shaky. And one day, I went over to my buddy's house, and we had one of those Ohio storms, and the tree fort was no more. And I said, what happened to our fort? He said the storm came through and destroyed it. And I said, how can that be? I mean, we were little. I was like, to me, that was the end of the world. Life was ruined, game over. Where are we going to keep our snacks that we stole from your house? We could just go to the house and eat them, but tree fort's way cooler. See, we had knocked out all the supports that were holding up the roof, and as the wind came through, it just destroyed it. Why do I tell you this story? Why do I talk about Legos and IKEA and all these things? Because there are times in your life where things seem insignificant. They don't seem so important, and your vision might be on something else, and so you begin to just forget about things and ignore things, and that's usually the time it causes the most damage. And I think a lot of times in our spiritual walk, a lot of times we're going through things. And this morning I want to talk about the church that walks in faith, because I think a lot of times our faith is wavered because we view things as insignificant. We view seasons of our life as insignificant. Some of you right now are in a season where you don't feel your life is very important, right? Some of you are stay-at-home moms. And you're raising kids and you think, what significance does my life have right now? I'm just at home with kids trying to keep them sane, right? Like trying to homeschool and make sure, one, they don't murder each other, but two, I don't murder one of them. Let me tell you, Common Core math is testing my faith right now. I keep trying to carry the one and my wife says, no, don't do that. But some of you view seasons of life right now, and I'm here to say that this season that you're in is greatly significant. There is a great need for this season. There is a purpose to this season, and I think a lot of times the church, we walk through things, and we begin to question, why are we here, or what are we doing, because it doesn't seem important. We like to do the comparing game, right? Whether it's church or people, we like to look around and say, well, look at this person's life. Look at all they're accomplishing. Look at all that they have. Right? Even as a pastor, right? Like I'm supposed to be so holy and read the Bible. Man, I look around and I'm like, man, look at what man, it feels like they have way more influence than I do. And those are usually the moments where I have to check myself or I have to get into God's presence and say, I don't necessarily know if I want what they have. I don't know if I really need it. God has not called me to be that. And so what happens is our faith, we begin to question things, and we begin to question where God is leading us because we don't understand the season that we're in. See, living a life of faith means committing to the process, not just living in the results. And we are people who love results. We want the house, we want the car, we want the money, we want the kids, we want all the things. And sometimes the greatest faith, if we can look at, we've been talking about Moses in the Old Testament a lot. Look at the Israelites. They weren't just in the desert to be punished. They were in the desert to build their faith for 40 years. To understand who God is, the book of Deuteronomy is a book of faith that is written out of a season of nothingness. And so this morning in the book of Matthew chapter 13, I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I do want to read one part of it. Because Matthew gives a whole chapter by talking about seeds and planting. Any farmers in here? Any people? Nate's here today. He loves plants. I don't know, he just sits in fields and then he burns them down and regrows them. It's basically what I think Nate's job is. But here's the thing. Jesus spends a whole chapter talking about plants. Anybody hate plants? Like you hate gardening. It is not your jam. You're like, if I grow something, it's dead. Like it's game over. Yeah, we're not judging here. It's okay. And how many of y'all have dead mums still sitting on your front porch? We do. We just hid them behind the bushes. We just shoved them down there so you don't see them. And so here's the thing. Jesus is teaching Matthew chapter 13, verse 3. He says this. He says, listen, a farmer went out to plant some seed. As he scattered the seed across the field, some of the seeds fell on a footpath. The birds came and they ate them. Other seeds fell on shallow soil and underlying rock. The seeds sprouted quickly, but the soil was shallow. The plants soon withered under the hot sun, and since they didn't have deep roots, they died. Other seeds fell among the thorns, and they grew, but the thorns choked them out. Still other seeds fell on fertile soil, and they produced a crop, and it was 30, 60, even 100 times as much as had been planted. Anyone with ears can hear and should listen and understand. So Jesus gives this parable. He's talking about a farm. It might be a true story, but we're going to assume it's a parable. He gives this parable. He's talking about planting seed, and he gives all these different scenarios. And if you read on through Matthew 13, he begins to unpack it and talk about how these different scenarios with the seed reflect our lives as humans. And then he goes on to talk about faith and mustard seeds. And he's talking about if you're not a seed person, you are like, Jesus, I am not with you right now, right? Anybody ever been around a group of people and all they do is talk about sports? And you're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I'm out. I don't know sports right now. And so this is Jesus. I imagine people are like, Jesus, why are you talking about seeds right now? This morning, I want to talk about seeds because I think there's a lesson in faith in the midst of what Jesus is teaching. Jesus is teaching three important things. There's three important aspects to this story because there's three different ways Jesus talks about seed getting scattered. The first part of this story, it talks about the farmer going out and scattering the seed. Anybody ever planted grass seed or anything like that? It is funny how a bag of grass seed will not last as far as you think. You will go out and you'll just begin to scatter seed everywhere, and you just throw it and you're trying to get it everywhere, all over the place. I am not a farmer, so I'm talking outside of my wheelhouse. Some of you are like, Brent, you don't know what you're talking about. You're absolutely right. I am not a farmer. We had pigs and cows and that stuff. We did not plant plants. Plant plants? Is that how you say it? Crops? Things. Plants. So anyway, so you scatter the seed out. And there's an important aspect of faith in the scatter. See, the farmer goes out in all three of these situations, whether it's the soil, in all the situation with the thorns, he scatters the seed everywhere. His job is to go out, and I'm just going to put seed in all of the places because I want as much seed everywhere to see what results I will get. This is important to the kingdom. There are some of you that your life is called to be a seed scatter. You are called to go out and you're like evangelist person. You're like, woo, I'm going to tell everybody about Jesus. Yeah, and you're just running. You're through the streets. You're like, God is so good. Zach, your mom, I see it. She's a seed scatter. She just wants everybody to know she loves Jesus and Jesus is so good. And she's telling everyone about it. She's going to Guatemala. She's hanging out, with her friends. There are seed scatters in the kingdom. Some of you are seed scatters. She shatterers. My wife tells me I'm a public speaker. I should know how to talk right, but pray for me. And I also have ADHD, so those two don't go together well. And so there are seed scatters in the kingdom. That person is the missionary, the evangelist. They're projecting. There are seasons of your life, though, where it feels like you're just scattering a whole bunch of seed. Parents, if you got young children, you are in a season of life where you are scattering seed. You are throwing as much nuggets of wisdom out, hoping, and especially if you got teenagers, right? If you got a middle schooler, you're like, I'm dumping buckets of seed out because I don't know if one of those are going to stick or not. You're like, I just need something to start to grow. And you're just throwing, there are seasons of your life where you are scattering seed. You are throwing it out. And it doesn't always seem so significant. It doesn't always seem so important. It seems like in that season there can be great faith if you're a seed scatter, but if that is not who you feel like God has called you to be, you think, I'm throwing nothing and I'm seeing no results. Some of you have jobs where you feel like, I'm just working and I'm doing all these things and I'm going. Where's the harvest? I want to see some plants. Seed scattering can be great faith or it can bring great discouragement. There's another scenario in this story. It says the farmer throws the seed and some of it falls into the ground and some of it grows really fast and it's in the shallow soil and the sun burns it up. But it says the third scenario, it falls into the fertile ground. And the water waters the seed. Anybody remember the lima bean science experiment in elementary school? Anybody ever do that where you put it in the napkin? I hated that experiment. Because I want results, right? I want miracle grow. That's why someone invented it, because we want fast things. We want things to happen quick. And there are times in life where you plant the seed in the ground, and as it gets into the fertile soil and the roots begin to spread out, you don't always see the results immediately. There is growth that happens under the ground, and we don't always see the plant that's growing. Think of a potato, right? That whole thing grows underground. Its whole life, all of the fruit is grown within the soil. We don't like that in our world. See, walking in faith means that sometimes there are going to be seasons, and I believe this is the hardest part of the process, where you're sitting and you're looking at dirt and you're saying, where is the fruit? Back to teenagers, some of y'all are parents of teens. You're like, where's the fruit? Like, I know I gave you some good seed as a kid. What's happening right now? Some of you are in college, young people. I'm only 36, so I was there like not too long, kind of a little bit long ago. I'm getting old. But I remember sitting in that season and saying, I'm ready for my life to begin to produce something. And I remember struggling with God, being in Bible college and thinking, man, like, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? And then I got married and I think, okay, I'm graduate. Like, now I'm going to see the fruit of what God has been building within me. And you know where I spent the next year and a half of my life after graduating Bible college with a pastoral degree? Yes. I was a manager of Abercrombie & Fitch for a year and a half. Some of you are like, Abercrombie & Fitch, eh? I can spritz a store like a champion. I did not have to stand shirtless out front. It wasn't good for the brand. And so I managed in Abercrombie & Fitch for a year and a half. And I remember in my first year of marriage, after I had gone to school and I had spent all this time, and I had actually spent 3 years during college working in a ministry as a youth pastor and serving the church, and thinking, man, ministry is about to begin. Life is about to be awesome. And I remember standing in that store folding perfectly square polos and teaching high school kids and calling kids that don't show up to work. And I'm thinking, God, where is the fruit of the seed you had scattered? Can't say that. I'm going to struggle all day. And I remember sitting there, and as I battled with God and said, God, what are you doing in my life? God began to cultivate things. Because there are seasons where God is going to teach you things, where you're going to sit in the field, and you're just going to keep working the ground and hoping something's happening in the soil. And those are the hardest moments to keep your faith, because we don't always see the results. Some of you are in Abercrombie and Fitch season, where you're saying, my life should be more than this. My life should be more. There should be more investment. There should be more wealth. There should be something more happening, and I'm not seeing it. And then there's the third part of this. So Jesus works through. He says, there's all this bad soil, and it's not growing, and it's not getting cultivated. But when it gets into the right environment, and the seed laid down its roots, and the right things begin to water it, and you run the race, and you wait it out, and you take care of the soil, that is when the harvest begins to grow. Church, let me tell you something. Walking in faith means whatever season you're in, you're trusting the Lord. Because there are going to be seasons of your life where you're scattering seed, and you may never see the result, but you're a seed scatter, and God has called you to be a seed scatter. I have friends that are missionaries that are serving in the field, that have given their lives to be missionaries, that may never see the fruit of their labor, but they know God has called them to go out, and they stand in soccer fields, and they stand in the middle of towns, and they go into schools, and they just scatter as much seed as they can, with the hopes that something takes hold. And then I have other friends, man. There's those saints. I remember growing up as a young person, and there were people in church, and I would think, man, what are they doing? They would show up every Sunday, and they would clean every offering cup, right? They'd hand wash them all. They'd polish up. Remember the gold offering trays? Not offering, communion trays with the little plastic cups all around. Man, we're going to get some of those one day when coronavirus isn't happening, and we're going to shine. Man, they would shine that beast up. You would see your reflection in it. You would feel extra holy as communion came through, because for sure Jesus had a shined communion plate. But they would come and they would serve, and you would say, man, what fruit is coming from that? But they weren't looking for the harvest. They were just coming to cultivate the soil. And then there are those times where you're on the other side of it. And I think a lot of times in ministry specifically, you're either on the front end cultivating, or you're on the back end receiving the harvest of someone else's investment. Faith means staying focused through every season. Church, let me tell you this. As Anchor, Lauren and I came here 3 years ago, and we didn't know any. You guys, I'm not going to tell the whole story because you're like, Brent, I've heard this story 1,000 times. I don't want to hear it. But it's important because I believe that we need to give testimony. We need to give God the glory, because when God is doing something, you have to remember where you came from, right? You have to remember what God has brought you out of, because you will not fully enjoy the harvest if you don't know the investment that has been made, even if it was somebody else's investment. And so we came here, and people contributed to us. Talk about throwing seed. We had people that gave us thousands of dollars to help us start the church, and they've never stepped foot in here once in their life. Those are some seeds scattered. They're like, here you go. Here's an investment. I believe in it. Go. But let me tell you, we did our launch. Who was at launch Sunday, first service at Anchor? We had the donut truck outside, Holy Toledo. People thought, man, we are a bougie church. They got donut trucks. We're in the auditorium. Woo! We were living it up. Let me tell you, first Sunday is awesome. Second Sunday is awesome. But when you get 6 months in and people are like, where's the donut truck? I just want some donuts. And they don't show up, or people start like, then you're like in that season where you're like, the seed is in the ground. Where's the harvest at? And I remember walking through some things as a church and God saying, man, God, where are you? God, where are you? What are you doing? God, what are you doing? Where's the blessing in this? What are you doing in my life? Like, are you sure? And I remember having conversations with Zach. Zach's been here since day one. And I said, this is completely truth. I was like, Zach, I need to go back to being a youth pastor. I'm going to give you the church because I'm not seeing any harvest right now. And just being in that season, I'm not saying I don't love our church. I'm saying there are seasons in your life where it doesn't feel like there's any significance. And I think a lot of times as followers of Jesus, that's when we begin to question our faith the most. We're living in that right now. Man, people's lives, people are depressed because they don't think anything is important right now. But there's an investment. There's something happening. God is working. God is pouring out things. And so we press through, and I remember being like, God, you got to do something. And then all of a sudden, Advent happened. Who was here Christmas Eve last year? Being in this building was an accident, just so everybody's clear. We were serving at the nursing home next door, and John would go and he would sing hymns. Man, John was a champion hymn singer. Now, one day we'll go back and sing hymns, and they love John. I mean, there's nothing better than a pretty person coming into an old person home singing hymns. Man, those ladies I'm telling you, the guys would be back row sleeping. All the ladies were awake watching John sing. And we were over there hanging out, and he's singing hymns, and I'm like, and they want me to give like a sermon. I'm like, what do I tell these people? Like, And I'm like, and there's a lady like, I was raised a pastor's kid for like 90 years or something like that. I'm like, well, why don't you come preach? Like, and so we're sitting there singing. And one day I saw someone like wandering into this building. And I'm like, let's make a phone call. I thought the building was empty. And we ended up here for Christmas. Not knowing that the whole world was about to shut down 3 months later. And so we went out on a limb. I went out on a limb and actually asked the lady who runs the building. And I said, have they ever considered anybody using this for church? And they were like, people have asked, but we've ended up turning them down most of the time. And I'm like, challenge accepted. That's how I live my life. Like, if there's a bar, I'm going to try to get it. Like, here we go. So I met with her. I was terrified. And like 5 seconds in, she's like, we'd love to have you guys here. And so we ended up inside the Advent building. And this has been a blessing. Some of y'all don't know how hurt we would have been in the middle of coronavirus without this space. But also we've been able to bless them. We've been able to give to the hygiene pantry. And monthly we support their ministry they're doing. And we're helping people in the community. And we're a part of the mission that's happening here. And so we were in this, and even still, you're seeing some harvest, and you're like, God, what are you doing? And coronavirus hits, and half of our church is online, and half of them are here, and you're like, I'm writing postcards to everybody, like, come back to church, we miss you. Like, we hope you're okay. And we're sending postcards out. Scott's driving around in Chicago. I'm like, if you leave, I'm dragging you back to Ohio. And I'm like, God, where are you in the midst of this? And it's funny, walking in faith means in the lowest moment a lot of times. When you feel at the moment where, God, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you brought us here. God seems to come through. And I think, man, like, I don't want it to seem like you're always going to see every part of the process. That's why I talked about the seed planting. Because some of you will spend your whole life cultivating soil. And you'll never see the harvest, but your investment matters. Some of you will spend your whole life scattering seed. I was a youth pastor for 15 years. And let me tell you, it sounds real great, like that's a long time. But most of my youth ministry career was scattering seed and staring at soil. I don't know the investment. I don't know the harvest that'll come, but I know where God called me. The idea is that we walk in faith and we trust him through it. And I've seen God bless our church as we've kept our eyes focused on him, and we haven't wandered, and it's been hard, and we haven't had a lot, and we've been like, God, let me tell you, there were early months when we were early on, you were just watching the bank account go down, 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 if you've, and you're like, God, I know you called me here, but I ain't trying to work at FedEx. No one wants to work at FedEx. Scott's shaking his head. The people at FedEx don't want even. I watch those people on my camera deliver. They're kicking the package across the lawn. I'm like, what's wrong with you people? And I saw a guy talking on his cell phone and playing. I kid you not, I'm not exaggerating. Talking on his cell phone. I swear he was scanning TikTok or something as he hurled the package onto my porch. I'm like, you got two phones and you're not paying attention to anything right now. But I'm like, God, I don't want that in my life. Why are we here? And I've watched God be faithful, and I've watched our church be faithful, and I've watched him continue to be faithful. And let me tell you, we are only reaping the blessing of other people's investment. There are people invested on the front end. There are people that have been here since day one. And they've ridden the roller coaster, and God's continued to be faithful. And I want to show a video real quick because it's really cool the way God continues to move. But before we show it, hold on, John, 1 second. I really want you to catch what I'm saying because it's easy to focus on the reward. It's easy to focus on look what we have now. And discredit the seasons of sitting around tables and sitting at Starbucks and people just giving and not seeing the reward. And I want us to be a church that walks in faith in every season. I want us to be a church of faith when we scatter seed and say, God, we don't know what's going to come from it, but we're going to scatter it and believe in it. And we're going to do movie nights, right, on Northview High School. And it feels like, man, does this even matter or people just want free candy? Well, we're going to give every piece of candy and pray over it and hope that an investment happens. And I want us to be a church that builds community and it feels like nothing's happening and we're just cultivating the soil. I want us to have the same faith there, but I also want us to be the church that celebrates when God comes through in a big way. Because God is faithful in every season of the mission. In every season, every step of the race. And so I want to share a video with you guys, and then I'll wrap up and we'll close up today.
2020. It's been a year where we've seen change happen so quickly. It's been a year where we've seen things and plans not come to pass. But it's also been a year where we've seen God do so many works, and we've seen him bless so many people. And there's been a blessing hidden in the midst of all the chaos. We've seen it happen at our church. We've seen generosity increase. We've seen us be able to take on missionaries and support and help people through this time. And we've also seen the biggest miracle yet as a church. And we are so excited to share it with you today. We are so excited to share that Anchor finally has a permanent home. It's awesome. It's exciting. Right now, Lauren and I are standing in what will become the sanctuary of Anchor Church, the meeting place where our church will gather, where we'll worship, where we'll laugh together, where we'll see people get married and babies dedicated. It's going to be a place where so many dreams continue to come true as a church, especially with our kids ministry.
Yeah, this is an amazing new home for us. I'm so excited for all of our children to have their own creative space. It'll be different than the places we've been at before. This is theirs. They could write on the walls if they wanted. They could really express themselves through art. And that's been a major identity of Anchor as a whole, just for us to be a creative community. And to see the kids have their own creative space is a dream come true and a vision come true.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome because we're going to be able to do so many things. We've seen our kids ministry grow, and it's going to continue to grow, and we're going to be continuing to bless families and people. I mean, we're located right next to the library and across from Northview High School in the center of town. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be amazing. And one of the coolest things with this space, not only do we have a space in the center of Sylvania, in the center of town, but we are going to have a debt-free home, completely debt-free. Our church in the center of town to be a beacon of hope and peace and grace, and get to really be Jesus in this community. And so we are so excited to share this with you. The next couple months are going to be crazy and exciting and busy, as if they weren't crazy enough. We have a lot of work to do. We have to renovate this place.
If you're a painter.
Yeah, we're gonna need help. We're gonna need people to help us, and we're gonna do a capital campaign to raise some money to turn this in. I mean, if we're gonna have a home, we want it to be Anchor's home.
We want you to help build our home.
Yeah, and it's gonna be awesome. And so we're gonna give you more information as time comes on. We're gonna have a Heart for the House campaign where people can get behind, but we're also gonna need time. It's gonna be awesome. So you'll hear more as time goes on, but we wanted to announce this before the end of the year. We wanted to share it with you. This is it. This is gonna be ours. We've never had a space. There won't be setting up. There won't be portable. Like, it's our home. This is gonna be Anchor Church, and so I think it's awesome that God has opened this door. We get to carry on a legacy. This church has been here in the center of town since I think like the 60s, and people have poured and ministry has happened here, and we get to continue that legacy in this place. And so be praying with us. Continue to pray for God to bless us, and pray how you can become a part of this, whether it's financially or through your time. Let's link together. Let's be excited. We are so excited. This is going to be the best year. The best days are ahead. 2021, Woo! Anchor is going to be moving again, but into our own permanent facility. And so we love you guys, and we can't wait for this next chapter.
It is, I told John, I said, no one's going to remember anything I preached on anyway after we announced the building. But it is a huge blessing. And the reason I wanted to talk about faith today is because I'm going to explain in a minute how this all came to pass briefly, kind of briefly. I don't do anything brief. But I'm going to explain how this happened. But we are stepping into a blessing that generations of people have planted seed with. We're receiving a harvest of an investment that has been laid before us. And I don't want to take that lightly, because it's easy to celebrate now, like, look, we're going to have our own home. But I want to honor what has been done before us. And there are people that have invested into that place so that we can have the blessing that we're receiving. And man, if there's any testimony, is that to just keep pushing ahead. Especially, I don't know, Lauren, I'm going to let Lauren share. She wants. I didn't prepare for her to share, but I'm going to let her share because, man, she has invested in our kids ministry and in the back wing. And there's weeks where, we get to walk in here and this is always set up, but Lauren has to set up and tear down every week. And there's been seasons where I feel like she's looked at, I'm talking, but I'm going to let you talk. But she's been she's been staring at some dirt and saying, God, where's the harvest of this? And God is always faithful, and he always opens up doors. And a lot of time, which I'll share in a few minutes, it's in the least moments. It's in the moments where we're not expecting him to, and he always comes through, and he's always faithful. So I'll let you share kind of what your feelings are, what you're thinking about everything, because this is a big day. Like, I heard people saying, like, is this real big news? Like, and then like 50 people asked us if we were having another baby, and someone literally was like, is this like one of Brent's like big news? We're having Christmas Eve service. Here we go. Like, no, it's real big. Like, this is the biggest thing that's happened to us as a church. So I'll let Lauren share for a minute.
You kind of said everything for me, but yeah, this space has been wonderful for us. I think the school too, that was amazing to have, and to see like our story kind of unfold from stepping stone to stepping stone has been really a beautiful one. And again, this place has been wonderful, but I have been growing quite weary of the pushing and the hauling. And you guys too. You guys are there helping me, a lot of you, and I appreciate that. You have no idea, because there have been times where maybe, especially with coronavirus, I don't have too few volunteers, and I'm like, I'll just do it. I'll do it. And I think I'm strong in saying that, and I think I can do it. But then I go to do it, and there have been mornings where I'm like, and it's hard. It's hard. So this is, we were just like on our knees crying over this. This is amazing. People thought I was pregnant. I'm like, this is better. Like, this is so much better. It's bigger news. So yeah, it's really a miracle. And he didn't tell me I was talking on that video, so I was like, But it's true. It's a vision come true, because my vision for Anchor Kids has always been super high, artistic, creative. That's kind of all we do. I'm a crafter, and the kids back there, we go into craft zone. And now I don't have to open a case and like pom-poms fall out, and like craft supplies are just like and disorganized. Like now we can have our own space where everything is ours and organized, and it's theirs. They can, I said they could write on the walls. They very well could. We could have a space where kids could come and hang their art and write, draw on the walls. So it's amazing. It's a dream come true, and it's an answer to so much prayer and tears.
Yeah, I think. So how this happened, and I'll share. We can do like a video call or something where we talk more about how this happened. But I had gotten connected with a guy named Justin, and just through a friend. Like, he was moving to town, and he's a church planting guy. So church planting guys stick together because they know the struggle and the pain, and they just cry together about what they're going through. And I was like, sure, I'll get coffee with him, whatever. We got connected, and it was great. We had a good meeting, and that kind of went on, and we stayed in touch a little. But coronavirus happened, and as you know, like we said in the video, everything kind of went out the window. Every plan you had, everything you do, meetings, all that stuff goes out the window. And one day I was walking out of the grocery store, and I received a text saying, hey, do you want to have a conversation? I was like, yeah, whatever. And I talked to him, and he said, I know you have a building, but is this all right for me to share all this? All right, Justin's here. And he just said, hey, I want to have a conversation with you. So we had a conversation, and Justin is a part of a network of churches called the Missionary Alliance. And they are emphasis on missions overseas, but he's in charge of church planting here. And he said, we're trying to expand our network, and we would love for Anchor to become a part of that. And I said, okay, what's that mean? And he said, well, it would mean all this, plus I think we're going to be able to bless you with a home. And I said, huh? I'm instant, okay, where do I need to sign? What do I need to do? And so we had a lot of conversations, and our board met, and our board prayed, and we said, is this a relationship that we want to align ourselves with? Because, I don't ever want to sign away. It's like the story in the Bible. I don't always want to give it up for a bowl of soup, right? Sometimes the soup might seem appealing, but you got to make sure, it is worth what you're, we want to be a part of this. I'm ready to go all in on soup for the rest of my life. And God opened up a door, and we've just built an awesome relationship, and they're good people, and they believe in reaching lost people, and the building is right across from Northview High School, right next to the library in the center of Sylvania. And they said, hey, would you be interested? And as we prayed about it, the Lord just led us down that path. And so now we are moving into the season. So that's the condensed version. I can go way in more in depth, but I don't want to keep you here all day. And so we're literally, when I was preaching this, I'm thinking, man, there's a pastor there. There have been numerous pastors. That church was founded in the 60s or 58 or something like that. I think actually in the lobby there's a cornerstone with the date on it where you can actually see it. I think it was 1958 it was built. And there are people that have invested and done ministry, and I don't want it to feel like, oh, well, like they're done and we're coming. No, we are continuing the legacy of ministry. The Alliance, actually, the city has come to them and said, hey, we want this property. It's in the center of our town. And they had an option to make a lot of money off of it, right? Again, back to the soup. Sometimes it's not always better just to get the instant soup. And they had a lot of options. I hope this is okay for me to share as well. Okay. I don't know. I didn't ask. And they said, no, we want ministry to continue on. And through a course of crazy events, somehow we got into that mix. I believe God orchestrated every step. And now we're not forgetting about what's been done and doing our thing. We're continuing the legacy of ministry in the city, in the center of Sylvania. And man, I'm so excited. And because of their investment, because of the investment that's been made, we're walking into a building. We have to renovate it and do some work, but we don't have a mortgage. We don't owe the bank anything. It is being blessed to us. That is huge, to not have the pressure of a financial burden of saying, like, we got a building, but now we got to pay for it somehow. Man, God is so good. Like, I've already been through all the emotions of being excited, but I hope you guys are excited. I want to line up as we get into this thing. I want to do like a virtual tour since coronavirus and all this stuff. I would love to take everybody there, and we're all going to see the building, but people, got to be careful. Do like a virtual tour so you guys can see it. But really, man, I believe specifically with families, we are going to have the opportunity to minister to so many people. We're across from a high school, right? Like, if we don't have a student ministry, we're doing something wrong. So, like, we're going to have a youth group. We're going to have space for kids. There's land behind it. We can have bond. Like, Nate, you'd be in heaven. There's a river that runs through in woods. There's deer walking around. I'm like, we went and looked at it. We were like praying about it, and we drove through the property, and there was like a family of deer, and I'm like, as the deer panted. I'm like, God, you're so good. And some of you are like, what are you singing? I don't even know that song. If you were an old school church kid, you know what I'm talking about. And man, God is just so good. And so I hope you guys are excited. We posted the video. I don't know what. I laughed at Whitney because it figures the Sunday we have big news. We have like 50 technical problems in one morning. But we shared it online. It's on there right now. Share it. Celebrate it. Listen, I want to honor what's happening there because there's people who have done ministry. And I wanted to view like, man, I hope we gain some people, right? As one chapter closes, a new one begins, and we're going to be in the center of town, right? It's going to be awesome. So if you have questions, talk to us, ask us. There's going to be a whole lot of other conversations, but we wanted to announce this today. But I hope there is a spiritual takeaway to today other than Anchor's got a building. And that's when you walk in faith. When you run the race and you persevere, like you might be on lap 3, you might be on lap 2, right? Like think of Jericho, like they got up every morning, walked around that mess. And you might be walking and you're saying, God, where are you? This is stupid, we're in the desert. And you're feeling like you're just looking at soil and you're saying, where's the harvest? Where's the plant? Where's the fruit? And when you're faithful, God will always come through. God came through with a building in the middle of a global pandemic. That has nothing to do with me. I am not that charming, and I am not that pretty. I don't have books or CDs. These things just don't happen unless God orchestrates it. And so this is not about us. This is about Him. And we're going to continue to walk in faith because we have a lot of work ahead, and we have a lot to do, and we're excited. But we love you. I don't know. You want to say something else? Say something.
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Stop it. All right. Fair enough. Heavenly Father, we praise you. We celebrate you. We thank you. Thank you, Father, for providing us with a new home. It's like we've been in foster homes a bit for a while, good ones, but now we have the adoption, God. We are brought into your family in this new home where we can build together and work alongside each other to make this anchor and to reach so many people and continue on what churches before us have started, God, just ministry to you and service to you and your community. We love you. I thank you for everybody here. I just pray that everyone goes off today in celebration, and we're just so excited as we go through this holiday season, formulating ideas and working together just with joy, God. We thank you, thank you, thank you. In your name, amen.
Real quick before you leave, we are going to start a Heart for the House campaign, and that's going to be above normal giving to say, hey, I want to give to the future of the church and renovating and doing these things. So pray about that, especially as we go into the end of the year. Also, I want to invite you, and I've been doing this every once in a while. Man, if you're driving through, do a loop around the building and say a prayer. Man, I believe there's power in that, and I've been doing it. Our family drives through all the time, and even if you're just driving right by, just do a loop around it and just pray for what God's going to do. Let's begin to pray over our new home, even before we're there. It's going to take us a couple months before we get there, but we can begin to throw some seed down, right? And believe God's going to do big things. So church, let's be excited. This is a big day. Love you guys. Have an awesome Sunday. We'll see you later.